morning or afternoon, evening, everyone, for some very early morning. Thank you, Sim, for giving this opportunity. I think it's been a while since we started off a day with core and releases and PQS. So thank you. I don't have memes, but to borrow Michael, I have something better. I have questions. So how many of you know the latest stable version of Mojaloop, version number? Not the Mojaloop team, you should be knowing that, or at least the Mojaloop tech team. But anyone else, can you make a guess? If you don't volunteer, I think we'll have our people bring up mics to you, so you'll be put on the spot. So what's the latest stable version of Mojaloop, the current one? So if you give the name, I might even give you a chocolate that I got in Emirates. Anyone? Congo. Can you give the version number, please? Max? Okay, okay. Yeah, can you please repeat the version number and the name? Max is there. Behind you.
The major version I know is 16, and the name is Mojaloop Congo.
Fantastic. Thank you, Max. Anyone else know this version and the name? Can anyone give the full 3-digit version, like x.y.z? James? You raised your hand, sir.
The latest version that we posted a blog about was 16.0.0. It was a major version increment.
Thank you, James. That is correct. So we have this version on which we build, and there is what we call a set of scripts that we like to call infrastructure as code. A lot of technical jargon. You might hear the word IAC, infrastructure as code. It uses a lot of tools, not to oversimplify, but it uses these tools and scripts to deploy all the auxiliary or the complementary aspects of Mojaloop along with the code. So today I'd like to take a brief walkthrough of where we are, how we do things, what is there in our current releases, what is coming, and then move to the platform quality and security stuff as well. So that's what I have in here. We'll take a quick look at these two work streams. We have a work stream called core and releases, and then another work stream called platform quality and security. We'll look at the release roadmap as well towards the end. Before we go that, here's a bit of journey. I didn't want to start from 2016, though I have in the appendix, I have slides for that. But you can see the journey here from 14.1.0 to 16.0.0, that is our current stable release. And the next one that's about to come, which is 17.0.0. So the version 16 name is Congo. The release name is Congo. And version 17 that's about to come in a matter of days, it's Irrawaddy. Paul Macon at the product council identifies a strategy to come up with the names. We do a vote with the product council members, and these are the names that came up. We have another name in the list as well, which we'll probably reuse at some point in the near future. So you can see here, there are various features that came through this journey. There was bulk implementation of a request to pay on the peripheries, moving to support other infrastructure options. And in Congo, we have a lot of performance improvements. In fact, Mojaloop Congo version 16 saw the biggest jump in performance numbers for any previous release. So we're very confident in our release, and we can also see the rigor that we apply in making Mojaloop releases. Version 17 is going to be a huge leap for Mojaloop. We saw that in the previous days. We saw the discussion at the R&D session and the COMESA DRPP session yesterday. And you can see with version 17, we'll get the foreign exchange feature that the workstream has worked very hard in delivering, along with a proxy and inter-scheme feature. Along with that, we also have some of them are routine, regular updates that happen in platform quality and security, the performance improvements again, some automation, IAC upgrades. There is an aspect of infrastructure as code called Control Center. We saw that, and it's there will be a new generation or V2 of Control Center, if you will, that's coming with this. So currently we have the features ready. The work streams are confident and they've done the testing and demonstrations. We have the pull requests in review in the final stages, and once they're merged, we'll go into the release checklist and do the release candidate validation. Want to have a quick look at what we talk about Mojaloop platform. So we usually not talk Mojaloop as a single product, but it's a platform that consists of a few things. So here I want to give a quick view of what we have. Inside you can see, even if it's not legible, the most innermost circle is the Mojaloop core. This is the actual transactional components. These are the components that cater for the account lookup, the quoting service, the transfers, the clearing, the settlement, the transaction request processing, and the API layer. So this is the very core of Mojaloop, and we have some tools for demonstration and testing which deploy just these bare bones services. But Mojaloop is not just the core of it. So we don't want anyone coming newly to the community to understand or get the misconception that Mojaloop is just this. For example, when we talked about Mojaloop release V16, version 16 Congo, so this innermost circle is what we are referring to. It's called the Mojaloop core, and we use a repository called Helm, which bundles all the services that are published in the platform. But along with this, there are a lot of supporting components. We have something I think we'll introduce today called the ITK, the integration toolkit. We have simulators, we have event processors, tools for auditing. All these are part of, come with the package as well, along with this platform. And on top of that, we have components called Finance Portal. In fact, we saw beautiful portals during the demo with RNDPS. It was great. So a modular platform means that we also need to have these portals, which give a view for hub operators, and in some cases, DFSPs for needs such as reporting, onboarding DFSPs, operational support like monitoring, having dashboards, which help look at the performance and health of the system. And at the outermost layer, we have the API gateway. Mojaloop follows a principle called layered security. And at the outermost layer, we have the security components that provide for IP filtering, ingress, egress, firewalls that support our security mechanisms such as signature, generation and validation, JWS, mutual TLS. Until recently, we used a gateway called WSO2, but now since the last 1 or 2 releases, we moved to a gateway called Istio, which is more compatible with our microservice architecture. So this is an overview. This is to show that what we develop here is and focus on, even though it's Mojaloop core, it's incomplete without the rest of the components that make up the Mojaloop platform. And when someone is looking at deploying it or adopting it, this is the package that we need to look at from a platform level. So I'll give a quick comparison between version 16, what we have now, and version 17 that's going to come. I'm thinking in a matter of days, if not 1 or 2 weeks. So in version 16, you can see the base use cases that are supported out of the box. We have peer-to-peer, bulk, request to pay, PISP, and we have a couple of settlement models supported, deferred net continuous gross. We also have interchange fee that's supported. And we also have administration side features to support the participant lifecycle management. And so you see the version number here, version 16, refers to these core functionality. But when we look at the platform that comes bundled, so there is a reference way we can do that. We use the infrastructure as code to do that. But if someone wants to do their own deployment without using these scripts, they can come up with it as well, but this can be used as a reference. So the key thing to note is that we need a gateway and some kind of load balancers that support ingress egress functionality. We need role-based access control. Currently that is done using ORI stack. Security should be supported, mutual TLS, JWS, interledger protocol, and the components that are needed for that, like vaults and key management. Then we have the finance portal itself that helps with onboarding, management of the day-to-day activities of the hub. We have reporting services that needs to be supported. And we talked about briefly, but in some of the previous events, we talked about this in detail. For those of you who joined our infrastructure session, went to a little bit of detail on that control center. So this is like a management or a CI/CD plane which can be used to spin up and deploy multiple environments of Mojaloop, like dev, test, QA, staging, and maybe production as well. We have monitoring dashboards and on support for participant onboarding as well. So all these are part of this IAC release. So this is where we are showing that, okay, we have a Mojaloop release, but we are also providing a way with the scripts that help deploy it. And infrastructure as code evolved greatly over the years. And now it can be used to deploy on various different platforms like AWS cloud platforms, like AWS, Azure Stack in case, and on-prem as well. It's continuously evolving to be made more resilient as well, thanks to our IAC team and contributors who are working on this. So with version 16, we had a corresponding release number version 5 of IAC that was used to deploy that. But right now we are, I think the latest IAC release is something like v5.4.0, which has a next-gen control center and many new features as well. For comparison, if you see in Mojaloop Irrawaddy version 17, you can see the highlighted features there: foreign exchange, inter-scheme support. So FX support is there, control center V2 will be coming. There's also another feature that is actively being worked on, which the feature team says it's almost ready. It's the ISO 20022 messaging support. But if it is ready, by the time that we go ahead with the release, we'll go through the checklist and do that. If not, we'll go with the FX and inter-scheme, which in itself is a huge leap from where we were. So for those of you who've been following Mojaloop, we've been talking about FX for years, and the same with inter-scheme support. Finally, it's going to be a reality with version 17, Irrawaddy of Mojaloop. So some brief workstream objectives, what we started off with. Primarily, the goal of this workstream, Mojaloop core and release, is to make sure that Mojaloop works. So if someone wants to deploy it at different levels for development, QA, testing, or even pre-production and production so that they can customize and take it, the goal of this workstream is to make sure that it's in a good state and that it works. Along with that, the other primary objective is to work with other work streams who are developing features like foreign exchange or ISO 20022 to work with them to get these features and absorb them into the Mojaloop releases when they're of release quality. Go through the checklist, help make sure that the quality standards are met, the security issues are addressed, and they are merged into main branches, and then finally released to the community. So we've made I didn't nitpick during the question earlier, but we actually made a patch release during this last quarter. So we made a version release called 16.0.4. We were forced by one of the underlying dependencies that we use, Kafka, who made a change to how their configuration works and made some fields mandatory even for the previous versions. So we had to quickly go back and make a patch release to version 16 Congo. We still call it version Congo because that is the major version. But with 16.0.4 minor patch version, it just has some configuration changes in the default config that is published with Mojaloop. But otherwise, the feature set remains the same for the most part. Ongoing testing activities. So there are testing activities that are ongoing. We have dev QA environments on AWS. Some of the work streams have on-prem deployments as well, where testing is ongoing continuously to make sure that we have the trigger during our release cycle. So currently, this is where we are. We have version 17. A release candidate is in progress. So we have the pull requests in progress, but once they're merged, we'll go into the release candidate validation. And for the roadmap, we talked about it. We have the ISO 20022 message support that's coming as well. It'll likely be in version 18, but there is a small chance that it might come with v17 as well. So we'll keep the community updated using blog posts and messages on Slack and Community Central. For a long time, for those of you who saw this slide, it was mostly the same. So we have use case support, where we talk about P2P transfers. There are about 11 to 13 use cases that the current FSP interoperability API supports. But finally, for this event, I got a chance to add a new line to that. So we have foreign exchange and inter-scheme and proxy that are supported now. The workstream is very confident, and we'll have it with our next release. There is also a slight change in the slide, if for those of you who noticed, is so far we've been using the Mojaloop version 1.1. But with this change, we'll have a version 2.0. So there's a governance group called Change Control Board who manages the changes to our APIs. And the version 2 of the FSP op APIs is ready to be published. There are some final changes in the API definition document that are to be approved. And once that is done, it'll be published. It might even happen next week. Same with this slide. I don't want to go into the detail, but I just want to highlight the fact that we have new resources that are supported that enable the FX use case. And same on the admin side as well. We also have a services endpoint that is not fully developed yet, but in its it has been introduced, and it is there for supporting the newly introduced features of FX and Interscheme as well. Settlement, we don't have anything to publish yet, but there's been a lot of work done on a V3 of settlement. We were calling it next gen settlement, next generation settlement. It has been implemented on one of our code bases, but we're still working on getting it to work with the current release and push it out with one of our upcoming releases. So that will be a priority for either the next or the one after that, the program increments coming soon. On the third-party API side, so this is the PISP side, like the Google Pay or whatever third-party app that supports payments. We have a version 1.0, an initial version that is supported, but there is a version 2 of the API specification that has been developed and for the most part agreed upon, and we have a consensus that it is ready. There are some minor changes there, but we also need implementation support for that. So I did not include it here. Yeah, it stays the same. A brief overview here of our release cycle. I just want to highlight this, not good with colors, but this is probably purple. So there is a purple and yellow lines here towards the right side of your screen. So that's where we iterate through our feature, feature deliverables. So once a feature is delivered, we take that, we deploy, test. If there are bugs, then we fix, go through the cycle of deploy, test, release, deploy, test, release. And only when we are happy with the quality and there are 0 issues, we have 100% test pass rate, then we release it to the community at the end. And usually we make kind of an announcement or a blog, and I'm expecting that we'll make one soon for version 17. A bit of journey here from version 15. So the version before Congo was called Mojaloop Acacia. So it had another big jump from the previous one, but not as much as between 15.2.0 and V16. And now this is the current pipeline from now to the future. V16 is what we have, 16.04 to be more specific. But also we have V17 that will be coming soon, and then version V18 with ISO and possibly a next gen settlement as well. Simeon, is it okay if I pause there for a few minutes for questions and then move to the PQS, the platform quality and security side? Okay. Simeon is not here, so I think we can. Okay. Any questions or anything you want to add, anyone? I want to give a chance to people who are trying things out with Mojaloop and our adopters. If you have any questions, the next part will be platform and quality and security. But I want to see if you have anything on the core and release side of things. Okay, we'll move on. Yeah, if there is anything in the chat that comes up, maybe Simeon or one of you can point. Yeah, please. I think we have a question there. George, I can't see.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify on one of your previous slides. Maybe you can go back a couple of slides. Yeah, forward one from there. No, go forward. The first one with the matrix of endpoints on it.
This one?
No.
So this one?
Keep going to the matrix. The one with the black.
Oh.
The black back. Yeah, that one there. Yeah. Okay. So you said right now we're on Mojaloop version 1.1. And I just wanted to clarify to the room that that really is the Mojaloop API, what we call the FSP IOP API. That's the core API for the 3 phases of the Mojaloop transfer. and we're about to iterate that to the next version, just in case that wasn't clear. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, James. Yeah, it's important to differentiate. Yes. I think we had a question from George.
Yeah, my question was on the security fixes. Are these on demand? Are they scheduled? How do they actually happen?
Question, George. Thank you. So we have actually lots of tools. Can be quite overwhelming if we talk about it, but I'll go briefly during our next part, which is a platform quality and security, which is dedicated to that. But we have policies like coordinated vulnerability disclosure, cybersecurity architecture, and some policies around how to deal with that. But one thing which is very straightforward, I'll address that one. So if we come to know about something either in the media or anything, even before that, usually the tools that we have. So we have scans that GitHub provides. So there is a scan called Dependabot Alert that GitHub provides. And usually it's quite up to date, but there are some things which we might have to be even more proactive before they show up in Dependabot. So we have a full process, but we do an analysis whether we are affected or not. And usually Dependabot is, I like the tool actually. It is so good that it creates a pull request for us with the fix if possible, and most like 80% of the time it works. So we look at the pull request provided, the change provided that will address the security issue. We merge it and then we make a patch release. So as an individual component, it's available for anyone, and the fix is made in that particular service. But for critical and very high risk vulnerabilities, we also make a patch release at the Mojaloop level. It obviously it's on a case-by-case basis. We have a security alias for Mojaloop, security@mojaloop.io. We take the issues that are reported there very seriously, the legitimate issues. And these are addressed. We work with adopters in some cases to see whether they are impacted by that and how to work around those. Thank you. And we can continue the conversation on silence as well after the session. So yeah. With that, I don't see any other hands raised. So
Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one question here.
Okay. Sorry, I did see. Go ahead.
Thanks. So Mohammed from RSwitch. My question is more on the release management strategy. So as we get more adapters, I think a lot of people, most people may move to maybe their own version of the code. Now, as a community, what is it that we can do to ensure that we kind of merge this and have basically a common release strategy? Thank you.
It's a very good point. I think that is something I would say maybe we can discuss tomorrow as well. I think Paul Macon facilitates a product roadmap session. It is something that we can definitely discuss, but I would also say it's good to always stay close or compatible to the official Mojaloop releases, to the upstream branches. So that would be the easiest thing, but obviously easier said than done. There will be, I think, business needs and adopter requirements where you'll have to customize things and make your own versions. But you can, what I would say is we've did some research and we've used lots of tools. Like, for example, we follow a standard called semantic versioning. So you can probably adopt that as well. And we can come up with a strategy where you're constantly in line or in alignment with Mojaloop releases as well. And when a change comes, we have a mechanism in place to upgrade to that, even if not frequently, to make sure that at least the test and dev environments are updated to make sure the teams are aware of what changes are coming, and if there's anything breaking, to identify it quickly in the process. James, please.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I just wanted to add to that. Obviously, the best way to make sure you remain compatible with the core release is to do all your work in the open source.
That is the
however, we do live in the real world, and we realize that people will want to keep their own secret source, their own business value, their own intellectual property. But what we've noticed is that tends to be around the edges of the core. Most people tend not to modify the core too much. It's very generalized. to deal with the three phases of the transaction, the lookup, the agreement, and the clearing of funds. Most of the changes we see, specialization, happen around that. And those components, again, how can I put this? The official work streams that we run take a lot of time and effort to make sure that changes we make in the open source are backwards compatible. So the best thing I could suggest to ease this pain moving forward would be to engage with the work streams, the official Mojaloop work streams, working on those particular areas where you're making specializations. And you can give input. You don't have to give details about what your business case is, what your business requirements are. But if you keep an eye on the changes that are happening in the open source world, you can steer those in a way so it doesn't break compatibility with your specializations.
Thank you, James. It's a great point. And I want to also highlight one aspect of Mojaloop that, in my opinion, makes it easy to follow is Mojaloop is an API-led approach, API-based approach. And if you noticed, we try to keep the API changes to a minimum as much as possible. So even from the inception, there was a standard version, first version 1.0, and then we quickly had a version 1.1. But since then, maybe we can see it as a positive in this context, is we only had version 2.0 now. So with the new breaking changes effect. So that is to say that if you're following the API definition, the contract, even if there are underlying changes in the implementation, even if you choose a new platform or even a new language in some extreme cases, as long as you follow the API and the contract that it defines, we should be fine. So that definitely helps.
Just one thing there, Sam. You said there was a breaking change between 1.1 and 2.0. The API Change Control Board, they take a lot of time and effort to make sure that they don't introduce changes that break existing users. So the move from 1.1 to 2.0 added new resource endpoints, I think, but it didn't change any of the old existing API endpoints. So 1.1, if you were on 1.1, you can easily transition to 2.0 without breaking any of your existing implementation. You just might not be using those new API resource endpoints.
Thank you, James. Michael, please.
Sorry, yes, I just wanted to add to James's characterization. The answer is that there are changes to the existing APIs in 2.0, but we've kept them optional. So there are no mandatory changes to the existing API endpoints in 2.0. So it should be the case that if you're running 2.0, underlying code should still run, or your underlying applications should still run, because they just don't need to use the new functions on the existing endpoints.
Thank you, Michael. So to summarize, please, as much as possible, do your work on Mojaloop official repositories. But also, I think we are shielded a bit from this by the API-led approach and the change control board, who usually resist the changes and take into consideration adopter needs primarily. James, yeah.
Thanks. Just one more time. I'm going to reinforce being part of the community, taking part in the product council meetings, joining the DA. Taking part in the DA open discussions, joining the work streams, you can steer the open source product. There is a process to make changes to Mojaloop. We have a rigorous product engineering process. But if you bring your requirements to the community, you can steer how the product will evolve over time. That's a really, really important thing. This is a bit different to a typical vendor relationship that you would have. A vendor will typically have a roadmap that might be addressing other customers' needs as well. And we are similar in that way. We try to generalize our solution so as many people as possible can benefit from the product. But we have to address the needs of the market. to stay relevant in the same way that a vendor would do. But you're part of that input into the product process. So I definitely encourage everybody who's attending here today, if you're not already active members of the community, then please come and join us in our online sessions. They're all typically Zoom, and there's a regular schedule for all of the work streams. We have regular meetings. The work streams are generally open. It's very easy to join a work stream and get involved. If you don't know where to go, just reach out to any of us at the foundation and we can point you in the right direction, how to get involved to steer the product in the way that suits you best.
Thank you, James. That was a good productive discussion. So we have about 5 minutes left. So I want to cover something on the platform quality and security side of things and also show briefly how it looks. I don't know if you heard this before. You probably have, but usually there is this term bill of materials that is a list of all the things that are used or required for production. And in software, I think we borrowed that term and we're calling it a software bill of materials. So what we want to do is as Mojaloop matures, we want to have transparency, especially with an ecosystem like Node.js, where there are multiple third-party dependencies, libraries, packages that we use. This is a critical need. And in the last PI and the one before that, we started working on this. Thanks to Miller for the nudge and to help us go in this direction. We are also inspired by the Node.js Foundation itself, who started doing a similar activity for their own ecosystem and resources artifacts. We had a program, we'll talk about this in detail more, but we had a member who joined our community for this specifically called Shuchita Prakash, and she worked on this feature. And we now have it available on Mojaloop repositories, and we have a pull request to add it to our continuous integration pipelines as well. So what is it? Why should you care about it? Let's say there's a regulator. Actually, yesterday I had one of the members here asking that you need to supply the licenses of all the components that you use in your platform to the regulatory authority, to the central bank or regulatory authority. So let's say that is a particular use case. Or for a person like who is working on the core, you need to see that all the dependencies and all the packages that you're publishing are in good shape. They're well maintained, they're not deprecated, they don't have known security vulnerabilities, especially medium, high, low, high or critical. So this helps with that. So it helps with the transparency. It helps us take a look at everything else, even at a granular level. In Node.js, we have dependencies not just at one level. So at the first level, we might have, let's say, 10 or 20 other components that we use. But the nature of the ecosystem is that each one of those might be using hundreds more. So sometimes it is the levels are nested to almost like 10 to 20 as well. There is no limit to that, but usually it's between like 7 to 20 or 14. So this exercise helps us dig deep, find out what's all in there in the system, and then identify the attributes of each of those components. Like, okay, what is the license of this? What is the maintenance status? Are there any anomalies? Are there any license issues? What are the versions? What is the patch status? So with that, we were able to actually harden our Mojaloop releases even more. So with this exercise, we are now in a place where we know and we can see quickly in a matter of seconds. And if someone asks, like if an adopter asks, we can generate a report and quickly give a list of all the packages, even if it's like a 10,000 or 1,000, and all the attributes like license, their versions, the package names, who is maintaining it, the link to the repository and all that. So this has been very helpful. And I believe it helps mature and harden our Mojaloop releases even more. So recently, a couple of applications for this are that we started looking at all the repositories that we ship with our Mojaloop platform. And we want to make sure there are no deprecated packages in there. And apart from that, we also want to include in our pipeline. So let's say someone wants to come and now contribute to Mojaloop. So one of the checks that will be made is, okay, you're making this contribution, but at this point in time, are there any outdated or deprecated packages that you're introducing? So this feature helps us do that. I mean, as a digital public good, Mojaloop, we do that. And the scripts and the features that we developed can be used by anyone. But this is a great tool for Mojaloop at the moment. And based on this, we are making some huge improvements for the quality and security of Mojaloop as well. So there are some details here. I don't want to go into everything, but we use a tool called Cyclone DX. It's a well-recommended OWASP tool, and we've done a lot of work. And if I have time, I have about 30 seconds, but I would like to even show that as well. Along with that, there are about, like, you can see here, 9 and 2, 11. The list, in fact, is not exhaustive. We have like 20 different mechanisms in place. And here you can see things like, I think as you were saying earlier, we have dependable alerts. GitHub itself offers 4 to 5 security mechanisms. It does secret scanning, it does code quality checks. And apart from that, we have a tool called Sonar Cloud, which offers even more exhaustive analysis. And we also have pull request reviews and the standards itself that Mojaloop has adopted. I have one slide regarding that. Let me go to that. So this PI, we were focusing on hardening of our Mojaloop releases and software bill of materials, and some GitHub maintenance as well, to make sure the rules and practices on our repositories are tightened, like how people can contribute, what are the things required. This is I don't want to go through the list, but we had about 11 things in mind for this workstream, not for this PI, but overall that are required for Mojaloop. And we are working on most of them. Some of them are planned for the coming PIs as well. So these will help with ensuring that adopters have confidence and can have transparency as well, and can see what they are getting, what are the policies in place when some issue arises. So we have several different things here that some of them from the Mojaloop team worked on as well, James and Paul Makin. We have what we call Mojaloop invariants, a set of principles that guide Mojaloop implementation and designs. We have a coordinated vulnerability disclosure policy for Mojaloop that we follow when an issue arises. We have a cybersecurity architecture that describes how Mojaloop is designed from a security perspective. We have some guidance on quality recommendations as well, and other Mojaloop standards are present in our documentation. So on the roadmap, we want to continue hardening of Mojaloop releases. We also have plans in place to get some certifications. So there are several well-known certifications. OpenSSF is one of them. We want to explore next PI if we can get that certification, or at least follow the best practices. I checked the list and we follow most. And in fact, we have additional steps in place, more than what OpenSSF recommends, but we'll explore getting that badge next time. And we want to continue maintaining and hardening our Mojaloop releases, and improve on the software bill of materials capability as well. I think if you see this, have a few seconds, let me quickly see if I can change my share and go to share my browser and show how this looks like. So let me quickly go to software bill of materials file, how it looks like. So here you can see, this is one for what we call central ledger. So you go to the components and a normal view. There's a detailed view as well. But here, this is what I mean. Again. Yeah, so without going into too much detail, you can see every little detail about that particular dependency or package that we use. What kind of license does it use, name, group, version, publish details, and whether it's deprecated or active. So this helped us come up with many items as well that have to be worked on in the backlog as technical debt, but it's a great tool and gives visibility into what we actually have at Mojaloop. And the detailed version has even more details, but let me show one other thing and then wrap it up. So I'll stop sharing and share my Excel sheet. Let's see if you can see this. So here, along with individual level details, we actually did an exercise where we aggregated everything. So let's say Mojaloop has 100 repositories, but let's say only 50 of them are published on a platform. Others are more like documentation and hackathon material, those kind of things. So what we did was we aggregated all the data, and we wanted to look at every single package. Okay, there is a particular library. Where is it used in all of Mojaloop? What are the versions used? So that gives a huge, like a very deep insight. And in fact, it was, for me at least, revolutionary and fascinating. Yes, James. Okay. Thanks. So what I want to say is, okay, we take a particular library and we can see where it is used in all of Mojaloop. So here we have a list of all the repositories that use a particular library. And we've noticed that the version numbers are different in different repositories. So there might be a reason, but sometimes it's more of a maintenance issue, or intentionally, some teams might be using different versions because there might be breaking changes in the latest versions. So this helps greatly with knowing the capabilities of Mojaloop, any security vulnerabilities, and address them quickly. But I'll say one last thing. So I think one of you asked, what happens when we find out there is a particular vulnerability in a library? So right now, if someone, or if we read in the media or NVD database, something came up, then I quickly go to this and I check, okay, do we have that library? And if we have it, what are the repositories or services that are using it? I quickly know if we are not using it, obviously it's not an issue, but if we know, then we can focus our effort on those services and start addressing that. So we made, I think, a huge leap in our releases and in our platform quality and security as well. And we'll continue the journey. I think we have plans for the next PI, which will build on this. But if you want to join us on any of these, or if you have questions, feel free to reach out as well. I want to thank all the teams. We have a new member, Shashi, joining us to help us with this. And we have contributors, Shashi, Devash, who worked on this. And I didn't want to say that we have developed the features here, because this is the work of the feature teams. But the integration, the testing, and the release is the main responsibility here. And I want to thank the work streams who've developed these features so that they can be released to the community as well. Thank you.